A huge thing that helped me is pain. Don't just avoid that and try to have sex or drink or party or going out with your friends or go work and make money to avoid the pain. Go into the pain. Feel the pain.
What do you have to lose? Let's take the jump. And when some listeners are sitting here at 20 years old, 18, 20, 30, and they've been in this fear of trying to prove to their parents, prove to their significant other, prove to their partner that they're good enough, and they're showing up to a job every single day that they hate. What do you have to lose? That's how I look at it sometimes. I feel like you look at that too, is like, what do I have to lose? Let's take the jump. Let's take the risk, because I feel like it's the riskier thing to not take the risk. It's the riskier thing to sit in something that we hate, even though it's familiar. Even though it's familiar, why be familiar in pain when we can make that leap? And so I've seen it with you now, right? And coming into this next phase and next journey, right? You were in a relationship that wasn't serving you. We had a business together that the underlying energy was not being enough and trying to make money and do business to prove to your dad and to prove to my parents that we were good enough. And making those jumps and those leaps that you've done now, I mean, you moved back to Miami. Now you're actually doing something every day that you truly love and care about. Can you expand more about how making that choice to walk away, like what opportunities and perspectives and lessons that's opened up in your life now?
Yeah. Another thing about making the choice, a huge thing that helped me is pain. So many people are trying to avoid pain, and I did too. And that is another thing that stopped me from being able to hear my intuition. Pain is one of my greatest teachers. Life brings pain to give guidance, right? So instead of trying to avoid pain and avoid the pain, really, go into the pain. Feel the pain of where I am in whatever situation. And then it becomes really easy to trust, because it's like, well, I'm already feeling pain in this situation. Am I really happy right now? No. So whatever the answer gives me is probably going to be best, because it's going to be better than this. So pain really comes to give that nudge sometimes of like, hey, something's up here. Like, don't just avoid that and try to have sex or drink or party or going out with your friends or go work and make money to avoid the pain. Like, the pain is here to tell us something, to ask ourselves those deeper questions so we can actually hear those yes or no answers and make a different choice. And 100%, once I made the choice and trusted myself, that's when all these different possibilities opened up. And, you know, my mentor, Mark, has said this to me, which is a really powerful saying. Every step forward I take, if I feel fear and doubt, every step forward I take regardless of that, every step is building my faith. And I was like, wow. I thought trust meant I don't feel fear. That's a lie. Trust means I feel fear and I do it anyways. Trust means I feel so scared to jump off that cliff, but I jump off that cliff. That's trust. That's trust. And trust and courage and bravery and confidence are all interwoven with each other. Oh, I feel really scared to talk to that girl. My heart's beating, right? Oh my God, what if this, what if that, what is she going to think of me? What if I stutter? I do it anyways. I walk. Dude, that's what builds the trust and intuition, and all that stuff is so correlated with, you don't want to do it? Do it anyways. That's the game.
I love how you're talking about your relationship with fear, with pain, right? Because so many of us fear the fear. We hate the pain. We're so avoidant of it. We suppress it. As you mentioned, we drink alcohol, smoke weed, scroll social media. We distract ourselves constantly from feeling those emotions. And if we do feel the emotions, we're so fucking shit scared of them that we can't actually even process them. And then it's just this underlying brewing thing that just continues to build and build and build. And then all of a sudden we're just like fucking like overwhelmed in pain until it manifests as heart disease, freaking other diseases. Like it comes out and people are wondering like why we're so unhealthy and unhappy. And it's interesting because pain and fear and shame and guilt and these quote unquote negative emotions, they are part of the human experience. We all face it. We all have it at times. And so to actually accept it and love those feelings is quite powerful. And that's where I found so much value in me is like, oh, I see it coming up. Cool. I'm okay with it. I accept it, right? I breathe through it. And from there, when I accept it, then from there, I can choose a different emotion. It's actually easier to feel love and joy and gratitude once I actually just let the fear come up and I'm like, okay with it, right? And sometimes, this is coming back to what you're saying, we can build confidence through action. We can build trust through action, right? So the fear comes up. If we're so fucking afraid, we're just going to be there fucking trying to push it down, whatever. Let the fear come up, see it, be like, all right, it's all good. Let's go. And then boom, now we're building faith. We're building confidence. So this is, I think, something we can dive deeper into, which I find very interesting. Because I think we had a previous conversation and we've both been talking about how this has been a main thing that we've been seeing in our lives in terms of growing our respective businesses, our respective social media presence. So give us some examples right now of how you've been, facing these fears, like how they've come up, how you've dived into them, and how you've learned, progressed, grown, and become a better, stronger, happier person because of it.
So if I'm going to dissect it, let's say, okay, I have a vision of where I choose to be, who I choose to become, what characteristics I have 4 years from now, 5 years from now, like what my trajectory is moving forward. And there's certain things that have been popping up in my mind to do them. And fear would come up like, oh, but I don't want to do that. I feel scared. What are people going to think of me? All this stuff. And for a few months, these things were coming up in my mind. And I didn't do them. I resisted them. I did other things. I scrolled social media. I ate food. I stayed in the house all day, distracted myself, worked out, things that are like easy for me that I've already done. Instead of going and interviewing people, because I felt scared to do that, I made talking head videos like this, just talking to the camera. Those are good, right? But that felt easy for me at that point. It felt familiar. So what really got me to make the change is sitting in the pain. I was like, okay, so I feel scared to do these things. How does it feel when I hold back because I feel scared? Man, my energy's low. I have all these thoughts in my head. I feel embarrassed about myself. I feel sorry for myself. All these feelings associated with that, right? Okay, yeah, I could keep doing this. Or how would it feel if I took action? Man, I'd feel proud of myself. My energy would go up. I'd feel just proud, confident. I'd be one step closer to becoming that person I see in my future. And then I just started making the choices. One big one was I felt scared to talk with girls, like to just go up to girls and talk to them. So I started doing that for a little bit. For a few days, I just literally made an intention to go and like find them and talk with them. Not just spontaneous stuff. Like I would go do it on purpose. Did that for a little bit until it was like, okay, well, I could do it. Is this really something I choose to keep doing every day? Probably no, but I did it. I walked forward anyways. Interviewing people, going and interviewing girls for my social media and interviewing people on the beach, just going up to people, hey, could I ask you a question for my video? I started doing that. And I started realizing every time I didn't want to do it and I did it anyways, I just felt like this it just feels like this weight gets lifted off my shoulder. Like, oh man, like it's fun, it's easy, I'm evolving. Because really, like anything that comes up that I'm resisting doing or I feel scared to do, the only reason why those feelings are coming up about it is because deep down, like that's the thing I'm meant to do to become who I choose to be. Like I'll just say right here, another thing I feel scared to do is skydive, bungee jumping, all that. Like that stuff is just terrifying to me. And I haven't done it. But I know as I keep moving on in my journey, eventually I'm probably going to do it because it's one of those things that's going to keep coming up that eventually is like, all right, well, am I going to keep holding back or am I just going to do it? Because every time I do it, there's something that opens up. And that builds trust. Because there's so many things I felt scared to do. There's so many things I didn't want to do in my life, right? But every time, like I said, I walk forward, that faith keeps building, that faith keeps building, that faith keeps building until I could walk onto that freaking bungee jump thing. And I've done so many other things at this point that I had a yes for, Remember, trust that intuition. And I got, okay, yes. And I kept doing it. I kept saying, wow, I keep evolving. I keep growing. I'm alive. I'm more alive than I used to be. Well, then it gets easy to do that next thing and that next thing and that next thing and that next thing. Because just because you jumped off the cliff one time doesn't mean you jumped off the cliff and that's it. It's done. Fairy tale, roses, sunshine, and rainbows for the rest of your life. You're never going to feel scared again. You're never going to feel sad again. That's bullshit. That's the illusion. I jump off and I do it again. 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 And I keep becoming, because that is the process of why we're here, I feel. It's to continue to evolve and at the same time enjoy the process of evolving. There's no destination. It's a journey.